right, welcome everyone. We're going to talk today about key points in implementing the new English language arts and literature curriculum. So one of there's two things I want to highlight, and that is a piece out of the TQS and a piece out of the Guide to Education. We want to make sure that when we're applying student assessment and evaluation and any practices in assessment, that we're accurately reflecting the learner outcomes within the programs of study. And in the Guide to Education, we also want to make sure that we are aware of the fact that it's Alberta certificated teachers that are taking responsibility for ensuring that any learning activity for students is directed towards achieving those outcomes that are approved in the curriculum. And the reason why I'm highlighting that is because we are going to be talking about the significance of the learning outcome in the curriculum. Before we go further, I want to make some assumptions that those that are viewing this recording are familiar with the architecture of the new curriculum, as well as you are able to log into the new .Learn Alberta site so that you are able then to access the new curriculum and have a good look at it, print it off, and look at the pieces that are involved. One of the big things I want to emphasize in the English language arts and literature curriculum, and this is not the same in regards to all of the curriculum, but in the English language arts, there is only one learning outcome for every organizing idea. And this is significant. So depending on the grade that you are teaching, because those numbers will range as far as numbers of learning outcome or how many learning outcomes within the English language arts. So for example, if you're teaching kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, you will have 9 learning outcomes within the English language arts and literature curriculum. And within each organizing idea, you have the guiding question, the learning outcome, and then you have the cusps. But we're really going to look at how under each learning outcome, there is only one understanding for each section in each organizing idea. And that is going to really be helpful in regards to planning. And of course, as you know, if being aware of the architecture, there are multiple pieces of knowledge and skills and procedures that are all a part of helping you plan that unit plan, that lesson, that long range plan. A little graphic that I created, and I help my pre-service teachers with this, is that if we look at the organizing idea, we have one learning outcome and then some understandings within each section. And what I ask my pre-service teachers is to really focus, first of all, on the learning outcome and those understandings. And that is why those are all the same color, because you are going to be starting your breakdown of the curriculum within those areas. The knowledge, the skills, and the procedures then are there to help you with the planning that you'll need to do then once you determine how you are going to break down that learning outcome. So let's look at an example. Here we have grade 1. The organizing idea that I've chosen to kind of demonstrate what I mean by how we can use the understandings to help us break down the learning outcome is I've chose comprehension. So the text comprehension, which is again that same statement that is all the way from kindergarten to grade 6, text comprehension is supported by applying varied strategies and processes and by considering both particular contexts and universal themes. The learning outcome for grade 1 under that organizing idea is students investigate meaning in communicated texts. Now, if we look at the curriculum and you're looking at, at the printable version especially, you'll notice that in each section, there is one understanding. What I've done is I've pulled those and listed them so we can closely see how we can break down that learning outcome. So let's just go through these grade 1 understandings. We understand text can be enhanced by listening to messages read aloud. Predictable and decodable print texts can be read and understood independently. Comprehension involves critical thinking through problem solving, monitoring, and self-correcting. Understanding texts involves determining the main idea, key ideas, and details. Comprehension of text involves making connections. Comprehension involves asking and answering questions, and comprehension can be enhanced by making predictions. So if we just look at that and we take our favorite highlighter and we highlight some of those key words in the understandings, it makes it a little clearer for us to see then how we're going to break down that learning outcome. Students investigate meaning in communicated texts. So I've highlighted enhanced by listening, predictable, decodable, independent, critical thinking, problem solving, monitoring, self-correcting, determining main ideas, key ideas and details, making connections, asking and answering questions, and making predictions. So if we look at those, almost every single one of those is actually a strategy that you can teach your students. And by teaching all of these strategies, what we're hoping through formative assessment, summative assessment, ensuring that our students have these strategies, they will have the learning outcome by the time we are finished addressing the understandings. This little section that I've placed down here at the bottom is just a summary, again, of those key words that are listed in the understanding and understandings. So again, if we look at that, having a glance at that, you can see right away what it is that you are to teach. We teach our students to listen. We're going to be teaching them how to predict. We're going to do that through decodable texts initially. We want them to then be able to be critical thinking through problem solving. And how do we do that? By teaching them how to self-monitor, how to self-correct. We want them to determine main idea, key ideas, and details. That's teaching them in grade 1 how to find the main ideas or what the main idea of a story or a text is. We teach them by teaching them how to make connections. Can they make a connection to a personal experience? Can they make a connection to another piece of text that they've read? Can they make a connection to something that they know about that's going on in the world, or something that's occurred in their family? Asking and answering questions, and of course making predictions. So again, those are, if we look at that and we even break that down over the course of a week, over 2 weeks, we can even have little mini units. We teach all of that, keep track of your formative assessment, and then you should be able to ask yourself, can my students investigate meaning in communicated texts? Will they get and glean the meaning from text? So let's look now at another example. This is grade 2, and I won't go through it as in depth as I did with grade 1, but it's the same comprehension organizing idea. As again, the organizing idea extends from K to 6. The learning outcome is a little bit different. This time they're examining and applying a variety of processes. And again, I just listed all those understandings that you will find under that learning outcome, highlighted the key words, and you'll see here a summary of those. So again, there's some very common ones to grade 1, but yet you can also see that we are building on some of those skills. And so the question is, when we're teaching these, are we ensuring that the student will have mastered the learning outcome by the end of the year? And that's our key question, because again, it's the learning outcome that we are assessing by the end of the year. Grade 3, same kind of process. And again, if you look at the understandings and the summary of them at the bottom, it's a building on. And again, I've told many teachers as well that, you know, if you've got kids and there's a little bit of a learning loss from the last few years, very easy to go back and have a look at the curriculum to see what it was that they were to have mastered by the end of grade 2 in the new curriculum, so you can even back the bus up a little bit. But again, a lot of common words here in the understandings, and building on some of those really important comprehension strategies. Grade 4 is not mandatory in this year, 2022, 2023, but I have been working with some grade 4 to 6 teachers. Again, just a really nice view of how things just keep building. Grade 5 and grade 6. So you might be asking, what do I do after I have kind of pulled together, say, an organizing idea, the learning outcome, and then also have like condensed all those understandings? What do I do from there? Well, one of the things that I have done with the teachers that I've been working with is even before we do something like this, take your curriculum, print it off, and with one highlighter, highlight the learning outcome and the understandings in the same color. So it's a quick glance. One of the other things you can do as well then is, and this is of course something that I do, but some teachers have found it helpful, that after you do that, you go back to the beginning of the whole curriculum and you read through the knowledge, the skills and procedures, and you start writing down some of those key words or key concepts. So if I look at this grade 5 example, and the only reason why I have this on here is because I did sit down with a group of grade 5 teachers and really went through in detail with the curriculum, and we looked at each section. And so text can be digital or non-digital. Text can have more than one purpose, including, so right away I'm thinking I have to teach purpose. I write down purpose. Reading stamina can be developed. Oh, we got to teach stamina. Fiction, nonfiction. So as you're going through, you write down those keywords. Then you go back with a different colored highlighter, and you'll notice that there are some really specific things in the curriculum, no matter what grade it is, that you'll have to teach. And in this example in grade 5, we have all those specific affixes. We have specific terms over here in the skills and procedures, bases and affixes, applying tier 2 words, applying tier 3 words, similes, metaphors, analogies. So you can see now, after we have taken the learning outcome, we have broken it down into understandings. Now we're looking at those specific things that are then we build on and we use to teach those understandings and help to get the mastery of the learning outcome by the end of the year. So, and this I'm finding has been really, really helpful for teachers because, again, you need time to go through the curriculum to find out what it is that you are teaching. It's easy to get things handed to you, but again, really clear to see what it is that I have to teach and then those specific things. One of the little document that I came up with that we can easily share with you as well is it's a planning document that teachers are using. Then after they've gone through the curriculum in this way, they can plug in the learning, the organizing idea, the learning outcome, and one understanding at a time now. And we plug in all of those what words, those concept words written in the margins. And we write down the how words, which are usually skills and procedures. So it's some of those specific things in the skills and procedures. Now, the third column is, how do I flesh this out? So there's so many things that teachers already do. It's not a matter of reinventing the wheel. It's a matter of thinking now, what do I already do that I can just jot down here that is going to help me teach the what and the how so that this understanding becomes fleshed out. So it might be read alouds. Read alouds we can do, especially if we think back to some of those comprehension strategies we were looking at that are highlighted in the understandings. We can totally include read alouds in there, or perhaps you do a lot of small group instruction. Perhaps there's a certain graphic organizer that you use that you can totally use again. Here's an example of where I've taken a grade 1, I've taken that text forms and structures and the learning outcome, but one understanding. And again, I've just written down on the side what some of those keywords out of the knowledge section of the CUSPs, the keywords in the skills and procedures, and then I'm fleshing out what are those things that I already do. Well, I do read alouds where I can do some explicit teaching. I'm brainstorming enjoyable texts and in regards to different genres like comics and comedies and picture books. I might want to do a theme or a unit on fiction or even nonfiction type books or texts, and then possible small group centers. And what is my evidence and assessment? And that's also something that, you know, when you're planning, when you're dividing up how you're going to spread perhaps the understandings over a period of a couple of weeks, you always want to make sure that you've got evidence and assessment ideas in the back of your mind. So they could be anecdote, they could be formative, summative. What are you already doing? What can we just jot in? So by the time you get to something like this, we're already thinking about what a unit plan might look like, what a lesson plan might look like, and then also how we might be able to spread our understandings out across the month, or even what it might look like in a long range plan. So before we get into perhaps what a long range plan might look like, you're going to want to, again, just really think about what are some of those literacy routines and structures that you already do, because you don't want to throw, just because there's a new curriculum, you don't want to throw out all your ideas and start from scratch. There are so many things that you already do that are totally going to meet the needs of your students in teaching this new curriculum. What unit themes or topics do you already do? What structures such as read alouds and novel studies, and if you have centers or daily 5 groups where they're practicing the writing and the reading skills, what types of word study lessons, and perhaps they just need to be tweaked up to include those specific things you highlighted in that second highlighter color. So you want to make notes again, like we did in the margins, and that's what's going to help you. Keep in mind that when you are mapping out what your planning is going to look like, that you don't want to forget about assessment, as I'd mentioned earlier. And remember, it's the learning outcome that has to be mastered by the end of the year, and those understandings can help you do that. So if we're doing long range planning, we've gone through the curriculum, we've looked at each understanding under the learning outcome. We have jotted up our copy of the curriculum by highlighting the learning outcome and the understandings, by highlighting the specifics, writing down keywords. Now, this is one approach to managing a long range plan by looking at what you do in your literacy block, whether you're a kindergarten teacher, whether you're a grade 3 teacher, or whether you are looking at this curriculum right now as a grade 4, 5, 6 teachers. What are your non-negotiables? I've created a template here where, again, and this is a lot of teachers have adopted, the ones that I've been working with have adopted something similar to this. You can write down what are those big general routines that you are working on, and you jot those in. And then you look at that piece of curriculum where you've highlighted everything, not your piece, the whole curriculum where you've highlighted and you've written down all of your keywords, and you want to perhaps then look at, pencil in some of those things. For example, what do you do during a read aloud? So you want to plug in some of those in here, learning outcomes, or your learning outcomes from different organizing ideas, and those understandings, not all of them, but just the ones that you know you might cover in your read alouds. Your step 3 then would be to, again, go back and think about what you're already doing, to go back to that learning page, which looks like this again, or the planning page like this. And this is where you're going to start plugging in some of those things in the bottom version of a template. So if we have our structures up here, we have our learning outcomes, which again might come from a few of the organizing idea, because again, if we're looking at read alouds, we're going to be looking at text forms and structures in the organizing idea. We're going to be looking at oral language. We're going to be looking at vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. And then which understandings are, out of the ones that are listed, would you find to be very, that you would be addressing in the read alouds? And again, go back and look at your planning structure, your planning document. And this is where then you're going to be looking at your keywords and plugging them into term 1, term 2, and term 3. Now, I don't have all the details written in there, but for a read aloud, you may be putting in, specific novels that you already read to the students, or specific picture books that you read to the students. This is just the part where you're going to put in a few more of those details and show how you're going to cover these learning outcomes and understandings over the course of the year. And so then you just continue that way. But what I've done in this video for you is just sort of giving you some ideas on how you can start looking at the learning outcome, how you can break that down with your understandings, and then looking at those keywords and all those possible specifics that you would then use to plan your lessons, your unit plans, and your long range. And it's just a way then of really pulling some of that together and getting a really good understanding then of what it looks like to try and have your students master that learning outcome by the end of the year.